Alright guys, so here we are again with the Dark versus Light event. So basically I've been having a hard time for light decks for that matter. So I know there are a ton of light decks, but most of them are not even complete, and even the supports for the light decks are non-light. So it's really hard to actually make like 5 decks in total that I would recommend you guys. But there are some decks that I really want you to use for the event as well. So let's get right to it. And yeah, there are only 3. Sorry. So the first deck that we're going to talk about is Dogmatica. So Dogmatica is really promising for the event if ever you're into the light attribute as a group. The thing about this is I remove a copy of Maxi and Ash Blossom in my regular ranked games, and then add a copy of 1 Effect Veiler and 3 copies of Snow Rabbit. The rest is basically additional Dogmatica cards or support for the Dogmatica archetype. There hasn't been any changes for the Dogmatica archetype since they are not really that strong in rank at the current state, especially if you're going up against tier elements. You're just going to prompt the effect of tier elements if you're going to send those monsters to the graveyard. Furthermore, in any other deck by far, you can just dissect any deck and then remove the necessary cards from their graveyard, from their extra deck to the graveyard. So easy enough to do. We are using 2 copies of Zoa here. You can use another copy of Dogmatica Monster, which is the White Knight, which is still a really good card to be on the field as well. So it's really up to you if you want to use it though. But for this deck profile, I'll be using 2 copies of Zoa and 1 copy of White Relic as your only ritual monsters. But it still works. You can go with 1 copy here and then remove a copy of Zoa. But yeah, that's up to you. Go for that. And yeah, basically all the cards are right here. Your Nadir Servant to 2 copies, your 2 copies of Calamity and 1 copy of Macabre. What else? The significant card is the Matrix, of course, and then the 3 copies of Ecclesia. So these cards will search out any Dogmatic card for that matter. Typically, you're gonna search out a copy of your Fleur-de-Lis, which will give you the negate during the turn, and also gives you an additional attack during each battle phase. So that's good. Extra deck wise, since I'm just using Elder Entity Entes, I don't have another copy or a 3rd copy of Entes here. So we're just going to use that as well. If you have a 3rd copy of Entes, that's really good. Just add that one in the deck and remove another copy here. Possibly the Mekk-Knight Crusadia or Underworld Goddess. I'm not sure about this though. You need a monster from the extra deck to summon this Crusadia. But it's a really good target for... You know what? Let's remove this one. And then add a copy of what I want to add for this one. So yeah, I'm just adding Asophil here rather than a copy of Mekk-Knight, because yeah, it's much better if you have 2 level 4s on the field, then just bounce back 1 card. I know there are no good targets for level 4s for this deck, but nevertheless, you can just remove this from the extra deck into the graveyard for an effect of Dogmatica Punishment, or a much more lesser attack that you might actually prefer. That is let's just remove this one. I think that's much better. So having the ability to negate if ever you can summon this. If not, you can just remove this to the graveyard for a copy of Dogmatica Punishment. So that is Dogmatica for you guys. Let's move towards the second deck. So second deck is Eldritch, and like I said on my previous video, if you want to see the deck list for the decks that I'm gonna recommend, it's in the comment section below. It's usually pinned in most of my deck profiles, so you go check that one out. So Eldritch. So the only downside for this deck is having 3 copies of Golden Lord and 1 copy of Kaiju. So it's not really that like strong in a sense, because floodgates are also removed from this event, which is typically understandable, and I would like to see events like that doesn't really rely mostly on floodgates. So all you need to do is just add some negates, interruptions for that matter, during the battle phase or summoning of your opponent's monster. That way you can easily remove some problematic cards as well. We are also using a copy of Trap Tantalizing Tune here because we are removing from the graveyard a copy of Sanguine, and this is actually a normal trap, so you can just recycle this back to your deck with the help of your Trap Tantalizing Tune. So easy enough to do, and then you can summon your Eldritch the Golden Lord. Now, removing Eldritch the Golden Lord would be somewhat problematic, but I think you're already winning for that matter if ever one will be already banished. Let's see how this deck performs if ever this will go into the event. Extra deck, we're not actually using this by far, because these are just materials that you can use for Extravagance or a copy of your Prosperity just to dig out your Eldritch monster or even your Eldritch trap cards from your deck. I think that's basically it. That's the Eldritch deck for you. If ever you want to recommend some cards for the Eldritch deck, just comment down below. All right. So the last and final light deck that I would like to recommend is Cyframes. Now, Cyframes, I'm pretty sure most of you are already saying that, oh, it's already in the loaner deck. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah, it is already in the loader deck, but there's some other cards that are not accessible to us. Pretty sure I'm going to use Cyframe as well. I'm just going to edit this one or like tweak this one when the event is online. So yeah, hopefully we can actually use Cyframes. The only downside for Cyframes is that if your opponent doesn't play, then you can't play either. So that's one bad downside for the Cyframe deck. Pretty sure for all those Cyframe deck lovers out there, you know what I mean by if your opponent can't play, you can't play either. So it's really an interactive deck that needs your opponent to do some card activation. So that's easy enough to do, very straightforward. As long as your opponent activates a monster effect, activates a spell, or activates a trap card, then you can play this deck for the event. But anyway, those are the three light decks that you can use for the event. There was some good recommendations with Lightsworn and Blue Eyes, but their supports are non-light, and I don't want to like go through the whole archetype and supports for those decks as well, because there's quite a lot of support, especially for the Blue Eyes and Lightsworns. So Lightsworns, I would like to try them out, but there are some Lightsworn cards that are dark in attribute. I know, shocking as it is, Lightsworn, but there's some dark attribute. Yeah, and also supports are non-light, so it's really a no-no for me for recommending that one in the event. But anyway, tell me your thoughts on the event, and those are my light and dark decks. If you want a link to the previous dark deck for the event, there is a link up right here, I think, right up here. But anyway, that's it for today. Keep safe, good luck. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Goodbye.